and down, up and down.
Up and down, up and down.
Now I'm going to add some shadow for a bit of mystery. This is how I get excess paint off my brush. Normally my assistant would do this, but she's tied up today.
Tied up assistant.
Now, recovery efforts underway. And the Taliban speak to news agencies saying life is expected to return to normal as of Sunday. More details coming up, but first, our top story. President Joe Biden comments on the ongoing efforts in Afghanistan and the Taliban offensive taking over the Middle Eastern country as the U.S. and its allies withdraw from the region. This Saturday, the president sent out a statement as the Taliban continue to take over cities surrounding the Afghan capital city of Kabul. Biden confirms that he authorized 5,000 troops to continue the drawdown of U.S. troops and allied personnel. This as an additional 2,000 troops as first mentioned by the Pentagon as of Friday. Additionally, the president stand by his decision to withdraw troops from the region, claiming that in the 20 years America has been involved in the region, the United States has committed to defeat forces that caused the September 11, 2001 attacks. He says that ever since, the U.S. has, quote, been in the middle of another country's civil conflict. 1 more year or 5 more years, U.S. military presence would not have made a difference if the Afghan military cannot or will not hold its own country. Any action on their part on the ground in Afghanistan that puts U.S. personnel or our mission at risk will be met with swift and strong U.S. military response. Police tightened security in Kabul on Saturday as the Taliban offensive continued to close on Afghanistan's capital. Insurgents have captured much of the north, west, and southern Afghanistan less than 3 weeks before the United States and the NATO coalition withdraw the last of their troops, raising fears of a full militant takeover or another Afghan civil war. The Taliban have captured all of Logar and detained its provincial officials. Hoda Ahmadi, a lawmaker from the province, said on Saturday. She said that the Taliban had just reached the Char Asib district, just 7 miles south of the capital city of Kabul. According to Munir Ahmad Farad, a spokesperson for the provincial governor, the Taliban also attacked the northern city of Mazar-e-Sharif from several directions, setting off heavy fighting on its outskirts. Meanwhile, at the Afghan nation labels the Lambda variant as one of interest, with research saying it may be resistant to vaccine immunity. It is also believed to be of higher infectivity. Right now, the dominant strain in the United States is the Delta variant, with trends showing that hospitalization among children under 18 are on the rise.
Pick up. Fred has been downgraded from a tropical storm, bringing wind and rain to South Florida. The National Hurricane Center expects the storm to redevelop in the Gulf of Mexico tomorrow. An airlines flight from Maui to Los Angeles. Flight attendants and other passengers held him down and wrapped him to his chair with duct tape. The plane had to make an emergency landing in Honolulu, where the boy was taken into custody.
So the shooting actually happened around the corner, but I want to show you this memorial. This is from one of the several people who were shot or killed here in the Edgewood area. Business owners say they believe all of the violence is bringing a bad name to the hardworking businesses here in the area. Atlanta police are looking for the person who pulled the trigger in what they describe as a drive-by shooting on Edgewood Avenue. Police say they got the call near Our Bar ATL restaurant and found 2 women and 1 man, all suffering from gunshot wounds. Investigators believe someone drove by and opened fire into the business.
We also have businesses that, take care of their community. They take care of, houseless neighbors on the street. They take care of the senior citizens. And so it is a really unique and amazing community, which is why it's sad to see, violence and other things happen on the street.
Executive Director of the Old Fourth Ward Business Association, Emma Tinsley, has been working to make the area safer.
Crime has gone up in the entire city. What we like to say is Edgewood Avenue especially and the Old Fourth Ward have been dealing with some of those challenges for the last 10 years or so. It's not really new for us.
Tinsley described Edgewood as a gem to the city as it's home to diverse local businesses.
We really just ask people to, respect the history of this neighborhood and respect the people that live and work and are making this neighborhood the great place that you want to visit.
As the 3 latest gun violence victims recover, Tinsley wants you to remember the positive.
I do hope that the great things that happen in this neighborhood and that are going on in this neighborhood, shine through some of these incidents that happen at night.
And again, police have not released any information regarding a suspect or a vehicle in this case. If you know anything that could help crack this case open or the other cases in the Edgewood area, come forward. You can remain anonymous. In Edgewood, I'm Eric Perry for Fox 5 News.
I think it's got to be an all of the above approach, Lori. I mean, at this point, I disagree respectfully with my friend Phil. I think that everyone should wear masks, particularly when you're indoors. And, we can sort of take this optional approach, Lori, but literally in this country right now, kids are dying. We saw in some counties in Georgia, first week, second week of school, teachers, students are actually, testing positive for COVID-19. And so I think the faster we get to a point where we are wearing masks, the faster we're going to be able to get control of this sort of the spread and this new norm that we have to live in. And then lastly, I do agree with Phil on this. I was very stunned to see the numbers in the African American community, Lori, that is really high of unvaccinated Georgians. And so he's right. Southerners in rural areas in Georgia definitely need to get vaccinated, but we have a lot of African Americans who are not vaccinated, and I have a lot of friends who are now suffering from not being vaccinated because they've actually caught COVID-19. And the thing that they're most scared about, Lori, is do they give it to their spouse or their children?
All good points. Appropriate for the moment, but be that as it may, it's going to happen. I mean, even if you have a vaccine and or a COVID test, that doesn't mean at the moment you're at the show, you're not exposing people. But it's the best we can do right now with the tools that we have. But let me be clear, we are not doing well in the vaccine department. There was a study released recently ranking the states. Yet again, Georgia is last in the increase in COVID vaccines since this latest spike. We are down 20% over about a month ago in terms of vaccines people are taking. So, in my mind, the governor has just not even tried. We talk a lot about the economy. We talk about returning things to normal. We've got to do all of the things, right? People have got to get vaccinated. Mandatory vaccinations, I think, are not out of the question. Contact tracing, which we don't do, has to happen. And people need to wear masks. You will get COVID without a mask. You might not get COVID with a mask. So, putting kids in schools together is going to be hard, even with masks, to keep kids safe. But we've got to do what we can do, or we're going to be doing this time next year as well. Phil, you got your hand up. That might not be vaccine.
Go ahead, Phil. Yeah. A friend of mine who's a doctor over at Children's Healthcare, and he says, there's very few COVID cases here. We're getting a lot of kids coming in with flu and normal cold symptoms, but he said, right now we're not seeing that. So I think we need to keep looking at the data.
And again, this has just been increasing. Democrats did it too, so I'm making a nonpartisan statement here. When we have districts that have too many of one party in them, we have people who only want to listen to one side of the story, and that has increased the divisions that we see in this country. The best thing that could happen for everybody is that people are in competitive districts and they have to listen to everybody and earn the support of everybody. And I think that would talk us off our ledges a good bit. I don't see that happening, but I wish that was what was happening, and I wish as Democrats and Republicans we could join together to insist on it. Phil, give me your analysis on these numbers.
Well, that's a nice sentiment, but like Kathy says, it isn't going to happen because you have to adjust all of these districts, like you point out, Lori, from congressional districts all the way down to city council and county commission to make them fit. And while you don't want to cut up neighborhoods, the Democrats did it, and now it's the Republicans' turn to keep power. And so when you look at congressional districts, the Republicans want to probably take back the 6th district where Lucy McBath is the incumbent. And if you look at the numbers, it's very interesting where Democrat Sanford Bishop is the incumbent U.S. representative in his Southwest Georgia district. That actually could flip. All of this is the art of map drawing, and so it'll be very interesting. And you don't have to go to the U.S. Justice.
Government and security forces collapse under a
President Ghani is set to relinquish power in Afghanistan, and the Taliban now on the march in Kabul. The U.S.'s precarious presence in Afghanistan is facing the all-too-real prospect of an ignominious end, and a dangerous one as well. President Biden huddled with his senior national security advisors this weekend, mapping out an updated exit strategy from the war-torn nation. This as the Taliban has continued its march, seizing increasingly large swaths of the countryside without much resistance, finally reaching the streets of Kabul today. Afghan officials say Taliban negotiators are headed to the palace today to discuss a transfer of the city, something Biden previously said was not a far-gone conclusion.
The Afghan troops have 300,000 well equipped as any army in the world, and an air force against something like 75,000 Taliban. It is not inevitable.
Near the embassy in Kabul, Chinook helicopters landing to help evacuate personnel as diplomats urgently destroy sensitive documents. Afghan officials say troops have surrendered Bagram Air Base to the Taliban, which houses 5,000 inmates. Increasingly, Kabul International Airport is the only way in for U.S. troops and the only way out for anyone looking to escape. Meanwhile, half a world away, Haiti is once again in the throes of disaster, with desperate searches ongoing to find the living, trapped in rubble following a devastating 7.2 earthquake Saturday that has killed more than 300 there.
Chris, in these last few weeks on the deal he says he, quote, inherited from President Trump and from you.
If the risks weren't so serious, Chris, it'd be pathetic. I wouldn't have let my 10-year-old son get away from this kind of pathetic blame shifting. He should be less focused on trying to blame this on someone else than to solving the problem of making sure that we protect and defend American security. Chris, it's worth noting this did not happen on our watch. We reduced our forces significantly, and the Taliban didn't advance on capitals all across Afghanistan. So it's just a plain old fact that this is happening under the Biden administration's leadership now, almost a quarter of a way into his first term. This is not the way leaders lead, by pointing backwards. We had a bad deal we inherited. The JCPOA, we got out of it. We secured America from the risk from Iran. We inherited a horrible deal in Syria where ISIS controlled real estate the size of Great Britain. We crushed them. Every president